Marcus Green's apartment was quiet except for the low hum of his old refrigerator. The room smelled faintly of coffee grounds and solder, remnants of late nights spent hunched over his cluttered desk. He sat at the chipped table with a pile of unopened mail, eyes dull until a pale white envelope caught his attention. He pulled it free, thumb brushing across the thick paper. Class of 2018 reunion. You're invited. The handwriting was careful, stiff, and too rehearsed, as if whoever wrote it wanted to mask their true feelings beneath a false elegance. Beneath the words was the embossed location, Rutherford Academy Banquet Hall. The very same place where, 5 years ago, he had felt invisible in a sea of polished uniforms and privilege. Marcus let the envelope rest against the table. A thin smile tugged at his lips, not bitter but knowing. Rutherford. The place where they called him weird. The place where his scuffed sneakers and dark skin stood out against white blazers and manicured smiles. The place where kids like Brooks, Tyler, and Chase had mocked him to his face and behind his back. He won't last a year in the real world. Too shy. Too awkward. A nobody. He remembered the echo of their laughter. The way teachers gave him praise for brilliance while the halls gave him nothing but whispers. He had learned young that intelligence wasn't enough to survive cruelty. But 5 years had passed. And in those 5 years, Marcus had built something none of them could have imagined. While they were busy curating their Instagram-worthy lives, he was grinding alone in a dim apartment, coding until his fingers ached, pitching to investors who laughed him out of boardrooms until the one day someone didn't. And when the world finally took notice, Marcus Green became the founder and CEO of Green Technologies, a company now valued at over $100 million. None of them knew. He had kept it that way deliberately. Success, he found, was sharper when it came as a quiet surprise. His reflection in the crooked mirror didn't scream billionaire. The hoodie stretched at the sleeves, the sneakers worn to the sole. His success lived in spreadsheets and investment portfolios, not on his clothes. And for the first time, Marcus realized, this was how he wanted it. Let them think the joke was still alive. Let them believe the reunion was their stage to humiliate him. They had no idea whose stage it truly was. He slipped the envelope into his pocket and leaned back in his chair. His breath came slow, measured. This wasn't just a reunion. It was a reckoning. The night of the reunion, rain speckled his hoodie as he stepped into the Rutherford Banquet Hall. The air smelled of lemon polish and cold champagne. Golden balloons arched overhead, banners gleamed, and laughter spilled across the glossy floors. Marcus moved toward the name tag table where Marcus Green was scrawled in looping ink. He pinned it onto his frayed hoodie. The pin caught slightly on a loose thread, an oddly symbolic reminder of where he had come from. Heads turned. Not dramatically, but like ripples across water. First near the bar, then by the photo booth, then at the stage. A whisper carried. Yo, that's him, right? Same hoodie vibe. Told you he never changed. I heard he's stocking shelves somewhere. A low laugh. Nah, my cousin says he's living with his aunt again. Marcus didn't stop walking. Their words slid off him like rain down glass. He took a seat near the back, shadowed but with a perfect line of sight to the stage. He folded his hands in his lap and observed the room like a coder watching lines of log data scroll by. He wasn't here for nostalgia. He was here for the signal hidden inside all this noise. On stage, Tyler Voss, the self-proclaimed king of charisma, tapped the microphone. His cufflinks gleamed too brightly, his grin rehearsed. Reunited and richer, he joked, and the crowd chuckled. Marcus lifted a glass of water to his lips and let the room tell on itself. Chase's credit card failed at the bar. Brooks flaunted designer jewelry but avoided eye contact when anyone asked how she afforded it. Roman muttered complaints about rent before being silenced by a glare. These were the same kids who once mocked him for being different. Now, they were barely holding their own lives together. The slideshow flickered with photos of classmates, weddings, startups, Pilates studios, law degrees. Then came Marcus's slot, a blank gray square with "photo not provided." Tyler smirked at the crowd. "Guess some stories don't upload," he quipped. Laughter rippled again. Marcus wiped the condensation ring from his water glass with one deliberate motion. His hoodie sleeve circled the table like clock hands counting down to something inevitable. He felt his heartbeat, steady as ever. The awards followed, paper certificates wrapped in gold borders. Best glow up. Most international. Biggest boss energy. Jokes stacked like blocks in a precarious tower of mean-spirited humor. Then Tyler held up the final envelope like a magician saving the trick for last. Honorable mention, most likely to still be different. "Marcus Green, are you around?" A few chuckles burst out. Heads turned toward the back. Marcus slid his chair back with a soft scrape. He stood slowly, every motion measured. He gave a small nod. "Thanks." Then he sat back down. The microphone drifted away, jokes stumbling behind it. The chatter wove itself back together, thinner now, unsure. Marcus sat in stillness. The storm swirled around him, but he was the eye of it. Waiting. Letting the arrogance of the room reach its peak before the fall. And when the time came, when Tyler raised his voice to announce the anonymous sponsor who had funded the entire reunion, Marcus knew the moment had arrived. The chatter in the banquet hall softened to a nervous buzz as Tyler shuffled his cue cards. He frowned, then forced his grin back into place. "And now," he said, voice tinged with bravado, "a huge shout-out to our sponsor tonight. Because none of this," his hand swept toward the balloons, the buffet spread, the DJ nodding behind his table, "would have been possible without their generous contribution. Let's give it up for Summit Gatherings." He flipped the last card, expecting the sponsor's name, but the space was blank. His smile wavered. Actually, they asked to remain anonymous. So, let's just clap anyway." A half-hearted applause broke out. Polite, uncertain, scattered. That was when Marcus pushed his chair back. The scrape of wood on tile echoed louder than the DJ's bass line. Conversation stuttered, laughter cut short. One by one, heads turned as Marcus stood, calm and deliberate, and walked toward the stage. He didn't rush. His sneakers whispered against the polished floor. His hoodie hung loose, a contrast to the sea of tailored suits and glittering dresses. For the first time all night, silence overtook the hall. Tyler shifted nervously behind the mic. Marcus? You, want to say something?" Marcus didn't answer. He climbed the steps, his movements unhurried. He adjusted the cuff of his hoodie, then simply stood there. Still. Letting the moment stretch until it became unbearable. The air seemed to thicken. Even the clinking of champagne glasses stilled. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, almost too soft, yet it carried. "I want to thank you all for coming," Marcus said. His eyes swept the room, not sharp with anger but steady, as though weighing each face and finding them lacking. "And I want to thank Summit Gatherings." He paused. "Which is really just me." The room blinked. A stifled laugh broke near the bar, but it died almost instantly. Confusion rippled through the tables. "What?" someone whispered. Marcus slipped his phone from his pocket. A single tap, and the projector behind him flickered. The slideshow of Pilates studios and wedding photos vanished into black. Then, suddenly, headlines lit the screen. Green Technologies raises $40 million in Series B funding. The new face of AI infrastructure. Forbes cover, Marcus Green, quiet genius of Silicon Valley. Gasps broke out. A girl near the front whispered too loudly, "That's him." Another stammered, "No way. Photoshop." But the articles kept rolling, undeniable fact after fact. TechCrunch interviews. Investor lists. A valuation estimate north of 100 million. A Forbes cover photo, Marcus, in a sharp suit, older but unmistakably him. The silence that followed was unlike any before. Not cruel. Not mocking. Heavy. Crushing. The weight of disbelief settling into shame. Marcus let them sit in it. Then he spoke again, his voice softer, almost like he was sharing a secret. So, when you ask what I do now, something like this. He slipped his phone back into his pocket. The projector froze on a single line. Estimated net worth, $100 million. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Faces froze mid-expression. Glasses hung in midair. Laughter died, leaving only the sound of people swallowing hard. Tyler's hand trembled against the mic stand. His once cocky grin collapsed into something brittle. Chase shifted uncomfortably in his blazer, tugging at the sleeves as if fabric could hide the sweat on his palms. Brooks lowered her champagne glass so slowly it looked like she was afraid of breaking it. Marcus looked out over them all. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't gloating. His expression was calm, almost gentle. That was what made it worse. You see, he said, what you called weird was vision. What you called failure was patience. And what you laughed at, his eyes scanned the room, locking briefly on faces that had once sneered at him, became the reason you're standing in a hall I paid for. The words landed like stones dropped into water. Ripples of shame spread across the room. No one laughed this time. Brooke's diamond earrings caught the projector light as she shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting away. Chase muttered something under his breath, then stopped, realizing even that was too loud. Tyler cleared his throat, desperate to regain control. Well, wow, Marcus. That's impressive. But hey, tonight's about fun, right? Old friends, good times. His words rang hollow, bouncing uselessly off the silence. Marcus didn't even look at him. He stepped forward, closer to the edge of the stage. His shadow stretched long across the polished floor. The difference between us, Marcus said, his voice steady, isn't luck. It's what we chose to believe, about ourselves, and about each other. He let the silence breathe again. Then he gave a small nod. That's all. And with that, Marcus stepped down from the stage. He walked calmly through the stunned crowd, his sneakers squeaking faintly against the floor. No one stopped him. No one dared. The laughter that had filled the hall earlier now hung like a ghost no one wanted to remember. The air was thick with regret, humiliation, and something darker, envy. Marcus pushed open the doors to the cool night air. Rain brushed his face, sharp and clean. For the first time, he felt the weight of the word loser finally lift off his shoulders. He hadn't just proved them wrong. He had taken their stage, their laughter, their arrogance, and turned it into his own victory. But as he walked into the night, Marcus knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning. Because success wasn't about silencing doubters once, it was about living a life that kept silencing them again and again. And something told him that not everyone inside that banquet hall would let the humiliation go so easily. Some wounds fester. Some grudges grow. And Marcus had just planted the deepest one of all. Inside the Rutherford banquet hall, the silence Marcus left behind hung heavy, like smoke refusing to clear. The DJ fiddled with his mixer, unsure whether to keep playing or cut the music. Tyler shuffled his cue cards again, his grin twitching as he muttered something about moving on. But the audience wasn't with him anymore. People whispered in corners, voices sharp with disbelief. Was that real? Google it. Look it up now. Oh my God, it's true. He's worth over 100 million. Screens lit up across the room, blue glows painting shocked faces. Each headline confirmed it, each photo undeniable. Marcus Green, the kid they once called weird, the boy who clutched his books like a shield, was now a tech mogul. Brooke sat frozen at her table, champagne glass trembling. 5 years ago, she had laughed the loudest. She remembered shoving Marcus's notebook off a desk during calculus, the equations scattering like confetti. She remembered telling him, "You'll never make it. You're too quiet. Too awkward." The memory burned in her chest now like acid. Chase sank lower in his chair. His blazer, once his armor, now felt suffocating. Only an hour ago, he was boasting about a startup that barely existed. His credit card had been declined at the bar, and now the man he mocked was $100 millionaire. He couldn't even meet his own reflection in the mirror behind the bar. Tyler Voss, the charismatic MC, stood stiffly on stage. His mic dangled useless in his hand. He had spent years curating his charm, training his voice to command rooms, but none of it mattered now. Marcus had undone him without raising his voice, without a single insult. Tyler felt the audience's attention slipping through his fingers like sand, and he hated Marcus for it. Roman leaned close to Chase, muttering, "He played us. He knew all along." Chase hissed, "Don't you get it? He owns this place. The hall, the event, everything. We walked into his show." The realization made Roman's stomach churn. They hadn't invited Marcus as the punchline, Marcus had invited them to their own undoing. Meanwhile, Marcus walked the rain-slick streets alone. His hoodie clung to his shoulders, droplets sparkling under streetlights. He shoved his hands into his pockets, not from shame but from habit. For all his success, he had never let go of the boy who learned to make himself small to survive. The city buzzed around him, horns, footsteps, the hum of neon signs. But inside, Marcus felt still. He thought about the looks on their faces, the disbelief, the regret, the envy. He hadn't wanted to gloat, hadn't needed to. But seeing them squirm had been more satisfying than he expected. Not because he needed revenge, but because the truth itself was revenge enough. Yet a part of him wondered, what now? Would they try to contact him? Pretend they cared? Seek forgiveness, or worse, try to use him? He could already imagine the LinkedIn requests, the sudden friendlies in his inbox. Success drew people like moths, not for warmth, but for what they thought they could steal. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from an unknown number. "You didn't have to humiliate us like that." Marcus stared at the words. No name, but he didn't need one. He knew the tone. Tyler, maybe Chase. Someone who felt the sting of pride more than the truth. He locked the phone without replying. Back in the hall, the energy had shifted. Conversations were hushed, cautious, every laugh forced. The night that was meant to be a celebration had curdled into something else, a wake for their arrogance. Brooks excused herself and slipped outside. The rain dampened her curls, mascara streaking faintly. She remembered Marcus once sitting in the cafeteria alone, headphones in, sketching designs in a notebook. She had peeked once, seen strange diagrams she couldn't understand. She mocked him then. Tonight, she realized those sketches might have been the foundation of the empire he now controlled. She lit a cigarette with trembling fingers. "We were cruel," she whispered to no one. The smoke curled upward, disappearing into the wet night. Inside, Chase downed whiskey like water. His jaw clenched as he muttered, "He thinks he's better than us now." Roman didn't reply. He was too busy scrolling Marcus's profile, reading every article, every accolade. The weight of it pressed on him. Marcus hadn't just gotten lucky. He had worked harder than all of them combined. Tyler finally broke the silence over the mic. "Well, I guess that's that. Drinks on the house for the rest of the night." His fake cheer barely covered the bitterness in his voice. The DJ cranked the music louder, but but it didn't fix the atmosphere. The reunion had ended the moment Marcus walked out. Everything else was filler, noise to drown out the truth. By the next morning, Marcus's phone was flooded with messages. Old classmates who had once ignored him now reached out like long-lost friends. "Hey man, so proud of you. Let's catch up sometime. Bro, amazing work. Maybe we could collaborate, got a startup idea I think you'd love. Marcus, I owe you an apology. Can we talk?" He scrolled through them, unread. His lips curved in a faint smile, not of joy but recognition. This was exactly what he expected. They didn't want him. They wanted what he had built. Still, a part of him wondered about the apologies. Were any genuine? Or were they all just masks for greed? He thought of Brooks outside in the rain, cigarette trembling. He thought of Chase's red face at the bar. Tyler's brittle smile cracking on stage. His phone buzzed again. This time, a different message. "Meet me. Tonight. Old Jim. Alone." Marcus frowned. No name attached. Just the echo of something unfinished. He didn't reply right away. He sat with it, feeling the weight of the words. Whoever sent it wasn't reaching for forgiveness. This was something else. Something darker. And for the first time since walking into that banquet hall, Marcus felt the old sting of unease, the same unease he used to carry through the hallways of Rutherford Academy. Some grudges don't fade. Some get sharper with time. Marcus set his phone face down on the table. The message burned in his mind, "Meet me. Tonight. Old Jim. Alone." The Old Gym could only mean one place, the Rutherford Academy Gymnasium. It had been the beating heart of their school, the stage for basketball games, pep rallies, and assemblies where Marcus sat in the back row, invisible. He could still picture the scuffed floorboards, the echo of sneakers, the laughter bouncing off the rafters. For others, it was a place of triumph. For him, it had been a place of survival. He leaned back in his chair. Success had given him power, but power didn't erase memory. Part of him wanted to ignore the message. He owed those classmates nothing, not explanations, not confrontations. But another part of him, the part that had walked into that banquet hall with deliberate calm, knew he couldn't turn away. Not yet. Because unfinished business has a way of festering. Meanwhile, inside the fractured circles of his former classmates, the fallout spread like wildfire. Chase nursed a hangover on his couch, staring at his laptop screen. Articles about Marcus filled his feed. He clicked through each one, bile rising in his throat. Marcus had investors, patents, contracts, while Chase was dodging debt collectors. Every boast he made last night felt like a stone tied to his neck, dragging him deeper. He was nothing, Chase muttered aloud. He was nobody. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't true anymore. Marcus wasn't just somebody, he was untouchable. Across town, Brooks sat at her vanity, the glow of morning light cruel on her tired face. She replayed the night over and over. The way Marcus stood on stage, calm and collected, while everyone else drowned in their own shame. She couldn't shake the guilt. She remembered more now, more than just the notebook she once mocked. She remembered the time Marcus helped her in chemistry lab, quietly adjusting her experiment so it wouldn't explode. She hadn't even said thank you. Instead, she had laughed with her friends afterward about how, the weird kid always tried too hard. For the first time in years, Brooks felt small. Not because Marcus had humiliated her, but because she had wasted so much energy tearing down someone who had only ever built. Roman, on the other hand, wasn't drowning in guilt. He was scheming. He paced his apartment, phone in hand, scrolling Marcus's company website. He saw opportunity, not in Marcus's success, but in his own ability to twist it. Roman had always been a leech, latching onto whoever had the most to offer. And now, he smelled blood in the water. If Marcus could be drawn out, manipulated, maybe Roman could carve himself a piece of the empire. Everyone has a weakness, Roman whispered. Even him. And then there was Tyler Voss, staring at himself in the mirror. His reflection didn't grin back. His performance last night had been a disaster, undone by Marcus's quiet truth. Tyler had built his identity on being the center of attention, the man who commanded the spotlight. Last night, Marcus stole it effortlessly. Tyler's pride wouldn't forgive that. He clenched his fists, jaw tight. "No one embarrasses me like that," he muttered. "No one." By evening, Marcus stood outside the old Rutherford gym. The building loomed against the night sky, its brick walls weathered, windows faintly glowing with light from inside. His hoodie clung damp from the mist, but his eyes were steady. He pushed the door open. The smell hit him immediately: dust, varnish, faint sweat embedded in wood. The echoes of the past seemed to hum through the rafters. A figure waited near center court. Marcus's steps echoed as he approached. The figure turned. It was Brooks. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Marcus, calm and unreadable. Brooks, nervous, her hands twisting together. "I sent the message," she admitted finally. Her voice trembled. "I needed to talk to you. Alone." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You could have just asked." She flinched at the bluntness. "I didn't think you'd come." Marcus crossed his arms. "Then why send it?" Brooks looked down at the floor, at the faded three-point line, the cracks in the varnish. "Because I owe you an apology. For everything." Her words hung in the gym, hollow and heavy. Marcus didn't respond, so she pressed on. "I was cruel to you. Back then. We all were. And last night, seeing you, seeing who you are now, I realized how wrong I was. I don't expect forgiveness, but I couldn't stay silent anymore." Marcus studied her. Her voice sounded genuine, but sincerity was cheap when regret was born from humiliation. He let the silence stretch before answering. "You laughed when it mattered," he said quietly. "You tore me down when it cost you nothing. And now you apologize when it costs you nothing again." Brooks's eyes filled with tears. "I know. I know, and I deserve that. But I swear, Marcus, it's not about money. It's about me realizing what kind of person I was. And I don't want to be that anymore." For the first time, Marcus saw something different in her expression. Not envy. Not greed. Just shame. He sighed. "Maybe you mean it. Maybe you don't. But forgiveness isn't something you just ask for once. It's something you prove over time." Brooks nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand." Marcus turned to leave, but Brooks called after him. "Marcus, they're not all like me. Chase. Tyler. Roman. They won't stop at shame. They'll come after you. I can feel it." Marcus paused. His jaw tightened, but he didn't look back. "Let them try," he said, and walked out into the night. Back in their apartments, the others were already making moves. Chase drafted a desperate business proposal, planning to lure Marcus into investing. Roman dug deeper, searching for dirt he could twist into leverage. Tyler, pride bruised beyond repair, paced like a caged animal, muttering revenge under his breath. The reunion hadn't ended at the banquet hall. It had only lit the fuse. And Marcus Green, whether he wanted it or not, was now standing at the center of a storm. The morning after the gym meeting, Marcus brewed coffee in his apartment. The bitter aroma filled the small space, curling around stacks of books and stray cables from old prototypes. He leaned against the counter, scrolling through his phone. The flood of messages hadn't slowed, if anything, it had grown. Some were flattering. "Bro, you've inspired us all. So proud of you. Always knew you'd make it. Some were opportunistic. Got a business idea. Quick call. If you invest in me, I'll double it for you, trust me. Some were bitter, thinly disguised as jokes. Guess money really does buy confidence. Don't forget us little people. And a few, darker still. Watch your back. Marcus sipped his coffee slowly, the heat steadying him. Success was supposed to mean freedom. Yet here it was, chains of a different kind. Everyone wanted something. Forgiveness. Money. A chance. Or revenge. He thought of Brooks in the gym the night before. Her voice had trembled, but there was honesty in her shame. Maybe she truly regretted how she had treated him. But Chase? Tyler? Roman? No. Their pride was too sharp to blunt that easily. Marcus put his phone down. He had work to do. Green Technologies didn't run itself, and his empire wasn't built on nostalgia. Still, a thought nagged at him, what would they try next? Chase didn't wait long. By mid-afternoon, Marcus received an email. Marcus. I've been thinking a lot about last night. Honestly, I'm impressed. What you've built, it's incredible. I've been running my own startup, and I think there's real synergy between us. Let's talk investments. You'd be perfect to come on board. Attached is my pitch deck. Chase. Marcus clicked the file. It was a sloppy set of slides, riddled with typos and buzzwords. Synergy. Disruption. Market domination. Beneath the jargon, Marcus saw what it really was, a lifeline. Chase wasn't pitching growth. He was begging for rescue. Marcus closed the file without replying. That evening, Brooks called. This time, Marcus answered. I know you don't trust me, she said, voice low. But I need to warn you. Chase is desperate. He lost investors months ago. He's drowning in debt, and last night broke him. He'll try to use you, Marcus. Please, be careful. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want to see you hurt. Not again. Marcus exhaled. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to think at least one person from that world had changed. But trust wasn't a currency he handed out freely anymore. I can take care of myself, he said at last. I know, Brooks whispered. But sometimes, even the strongest people get blindsided. While Marcus wrestled with trust, Roman was plotting. He sat in a darkened apartment, eyes locked on his laptop screen. Articles about green technology scrolled past, numbers and names and deals. He searched for cracks, for anything he could weaponize. Then he found it. A minor lawsuit from a competitor, settled quietly months ago. Harmless, but Roman knew perception was everything. If he twisted it, whispered it to the right ears, he could make Marcus look vulnerable. Roman grinned. Everyone thinks he's untouchable. Let's see how untouchable he is when the whispers start again. And Tyler was drowning in rage. He replayed the reunion over and over, Marcus's calm voice slicing through his spotlight. His friends had mocked him afterward, some MC you are. He stole your show. The humiliation was unbearable. Tyler paced his apartment, glass of scotch in hand. He thinks he's better than me. Just because he's got money? No. He's still the same loser. He just got lucky. But deep down, Tyler knew it wasn't luck. That was the part that stung most. Marcus hadn't been given success, he had earned it. And Tyler had spent 5 years floating on charm while Marcus built an empire brick by brick. Tyler slammed the glass down, shattering it across the counter. No one embarrasses me like that and gets away with it. No one. Days passed. Marcus stayed focused on his work, coding late into the night, strategizing for the next round of funding. But the shadows of Rutherford clung close. Emails piled up. Calls came at odd hours. A strange car idled near his building one evening before disappearing. The past wasn't done with him. One night, while reviewing contracts, Marcus received another anonymous message. Old wounds don't heal. See you soon. This time, his chest tightened. Not fear, anticipation. They were circling him, trying to draw him back into their games. But Marcus wasn't the same boy they remembered. He wasn't a victim anymore. He closed his laptop, stood, and looked out the window at the city lights. If they want a fight, he murmured, let them come. Meanwhile, Brooke sat alone at a cafe, stirring her untouched coffee. She had sent Marcus warnings, but doubt gnawed at her. Would he listen? Would he even believe her? She glanced at her phone, tempted to call again, but stopped herself. A shadow fell over her table. She looked up. Tyler stood there, his smile cold. Trying to play the saint now, huh? He sneered. Brooks froze. What do you want, Tyler? He leaned in. Don't act like you're better than the rest of us. You mocked him too. You don't get to play his savior now. I'm not trying to. Save it, Tyler snapped. Marcus humiliated all of us. And if you're smart, you'll stay out of what comes next. Brooks's stomach twisted. She realized then that Tyler wasn't just angry. He was planning something. Something dangerous. And Marcus, whether he knew it or not, was walking into a storm far darker than a school reunion. The following week began like any other for Marcus. Early mornings spent reviewing contracts, long afternoons in strategy calls with his executive team, and late nights coding in solitude. But under the surface, a quiet storm was building. It started with the whispers. A blog post appeared online, anonymous but pointed. Green Technology's rapid rise hides skeletons in its closet. Sources claim lawsuits, questionable patents, and exploited workers. The words were vague, designed to cast shadows without proof. But Marcus knew how quickly rumors spread in the tech world. Investors didn't care about truth, they cared about perception. And perception could kill momentum faster than any lawsuit. Marcus's COO, Laura, called him immediately. Marcus, have you seen this? Her voice was tight with concern. Yes, Marcus replied calmly. We can't ignore it. Do you know who's behind it? Marcus thought of Roman, hunched over his laptop with that opportunistic glint in his eyes. He didn't have proof, but instinct screamed it was him. Roman never built, he twisted. Lies were his currency. We'll handle it, Marcus said. But when he hung up, his hand lingered on the phone. Handling it wasn't the problem. The problem was that it had begun. The games. The sabotage. The same cruelty from high school, reborn in adult form. Meanwhile, Roman sat in his apartment, satisfied. The post was already gaining traction, picked up by small forums and whispered in investor circles. He smirked. Let's see how the golden boy likes being back under the microscope, he muttered. He wasn't stupid. He knew Marcus's empire was strong. But he also knew reputations were fragile. Break the illusion of invincibility, and people start to doubt. And doubt was poison in business. Chase, on the other hand, wasn't content with whispers. His desperation grew by the day. Investors had stopped returning his calls. His credit cards were maxed. The walls were closing in. One night, half drunk and fully bitter, he recorded a video on his phone. Marcus Green, he slurred, pointing at the camera. Everyone thinks he's some genius. You don't know the truth. He stole ideas. That's right, back in high school, he was always copying people's work. I saw it. I lived it. And now he's built an empire off lies. He uploaded it before he could sober up and regret it. By morning, the video had barely 100 views, but enough to spark threads of doubt. Enough to plant seeds. Tyler watched it all unfold with growing satisfaction. He hadn't lifted a finger yet, but already Marcus's name was being dragged through the mud. Tyler's bitterness was a living thing, feeding off every rumor. Perfect, he whispered to himself. Let him squirm. Let him feel it. But Tyler wasn't content with just rumors. He wanted spectacle. Public humiliation. The kind Marcus had dealt him at the reunion. And he had an idea. Marcus noticed the shift almost immediately. Calls with investors turned cautious. Partners asked for reassurances. Even his employees grew tense, wondering if the company's meteoric rise was about to stall. At first, Marcus considered ignoring it all. Lies burned out when deprived of oxygen. But then he remembered high school, how silence had only emboldened his tormentors. Back then, he had kept his head down and endured. And they had only laughed louder. No. Not this time. He gathered his leadership team in the office conference room. The glass walls reflected tired faces, lit by the glow of the city beyond. Someone is trying to smear us, Marcus began, voice steady. They're spreading lies to make us look weak. Laura leaned forward. Do we fight back publicly? Marcus shook his head. Not yet. The truth is stronger than reaction. But I want every piece of evidence tracked, every false claim countered quietly. And if we find out who's behind it, his eyes hardened. We make sure they understand exactly what they've started. The team nodded, reassured by his calm. But inside, Marcus felt a familiar sting, the old wound of being laughed at, doubted, dismissed. It was the same storm, only in a different arena. That night, Brooks showed up at his apartment. Marcus hesitated before letting her in, but something in her expression told him she wasn't there to play games. They're coming for you, she said without preamble. Marcus studied her. You mean Chase, Roman, and Tyler? She nodded. Chase is drowning. Roman's spreading lies. And Tyler, she swallowed. Tyler's not just angry. He's dangerous. He can't stand that you took the spotlight from him. He wants revenge. Marcus leaned against the counter, crossing his arms. And what about you? Brooks looked down. I don't want anything from you, Marcus. I don't want to see them ruin you. You deserve better. He held her gaze, searching for cracks. He saw fear, regret, maybe even sincerity. But trust was still a fragile bridge between them. Thank you for the warning, he said finally. Brooks exhaled, relief flickering across her face. Just, be careful. Please. 2 nights later, the storm broke. Marcus arrived at a tech conference where he was scheduled to give a keynote. The auditorium was packed with investors, journalists, and industry leaders. It should have been a triumph, another step in his meteoric rise. But as he walked on stage, he saw it immediately. A group of figures in the back row. Chase. Roman. Tyler. And a handful of their old friends, smirking as if the stage belonged to them. Marcus's chest tightened, but he kept walking, every step steady. He reached the podium, adjusted the mic, and looked out at the sea of faces. Behind the smirks, he could sense it, they weren't just here to watch. They were here to strike. And Marcus knew, in that moment, that the reunion wasn't over. It had only just begun. The auditorium lights dimmed as Marcus stepped onto the stage. Applause rippled through the crowd, the kind of polite enthusiasm reserved for rising stars. Camera lenses glittered, journalists poised with notepads, investors leaning forward in anticipation. This was supposed to be his moment. But Marcus's eyes flicked toward the back row, where Chase, Roman, and Tyler sat clustered like shadows. Their smirks were unmistakable. They weren't here to listen. They were here to watch him fall. Marcus steadied himself at the podium. "Thank you for being here," he began, his voice calm, even. The screen behind him lit up with slides, charts of growth, breakthroughs in AI, bold projections for the future. The audience leaned in, captivated. But then, a voice rang out from the back. "Tell them how you stole it, Marcus." Gasps spread through the room. Heads turned. Tyler stood, microphone in hand. He wasn't supposed to have one, he had clearly bribed or manipulated his way into it. His grin was venomous. "You all think this guy's a genius?" Tyler sneered. Back in high school, he was a joke. A weirdo. He copied other people's work. And now he wants you to believe he built this empire on his own? The room murmured uneasily. Investors glanced at one another. Cameras swiveled toward the disruption. Marcus didn't flinch. He looked at Tyler, his expression unreadable. "Sit down," Marcus said evenly. But Tyler only smirked wider. "Oh, look, Mr. $100 million thinks he can order us around. Tell them the truth, Marcus. Or should we?" Roman stood beside him now, holding up his phone. On the screen glowed the blog post he had planted days earlier, headlines bold and damning: Green Technologies lawsuit. Unethical practices. He waved it like a weapon. "This is who you're applauding," Roman shouted. "A fraud." The room buzzed louder, tension rising. Journalists typed furiously. Investors frowned. The moment was slipping away. Chase stumbled to his feet, face flushed with alcohol and desperation. "He's nothing. I knew him when he was a loser. And losers don't change, they just get lucky." His voice cracked, spittle flying as he ranted. The spectacle unfolded like a car crash, horrifying, but impossible to look away from. For a split second, Marcus considered silence. Let them burn themselves out. But then he remembered high school. Silence had been his shield then, and they had pierced it anyway. Not anymore. He stepped forward, hands steady on the podium. His voice cut through the noise, calm but commanding. "You're right about one thing," Marcus said, eyes locked on Tyler. "Back in high school, I was a joke to you. You laughed at my clothes, my silence, my skin. You thought that made you powerful." The room quieted. Even the journalists paused, pens hovering. "But here's the difference," Marcus continued, his tone sharpening. "While you were laughing, I was building. While you were mocking, I was learning. And while you were busy living for the moment, I was working for the future." He gestured toward Roman's phone. "That blog post? Lies. Fabrications. Anyone here can fact-check it in 60 seconds. And they should. Because I don't hide behind rumors. My work speaks for itself." He tapped the clicker in his hand. The screen behind him shifted. Not just charts now, articles, press releases, patent filings, verified contracts. Facts layered over lies. The crowd murmured again, but this time the tone was different. More skeptical of Tyler, Roman, and Chase than of Marcus. Marcus's gaze swept the room. "These men wanted me here tonight for one reason, to watch me fail. But failure isn't falling. Failure is staying down. And I don't stay down." He turned his eyes back to Tyler. "You wanted the spotlight? Here it is. Let everyone see you for what you are, men who peaked in high school, clinging to arrogance while the world passed you by." The audience gasped. Cameras flashed. Tyler's face flushed crimson. He sputtered, but his words faltered under the weight of the room's stares. Roman tried to interject, waving his phone again, but someone in the audience shouted, "Check your facts before you smear." Another investor stood up, phone in hand, confirming Marcus's story. Everything he said is real. Contracts, patents, it's all here. The tide was turning. Chase, desperate, lurched forward, pointing at Marcus. Money doesn't change who you are. You're still nothing. Marcus's smile was faint but devastating. Then why does it bother you so much? Laughter rippled through the audience, not cruel, but directed squarely at Chase. His face collapsed, his voice breaking as he tried to shout over the sound. But the more he flailed, the smaller he looked. By the end of the keynote, Marcus didn't just recover, he triumphed. Investors applauded, journalists scribbled about his composure, and industry leaders shook his hand with renewed respect. The attempted ambush had backfired spectacularly. Tyler, Roman, and Chase slipped out of the auditorium, humiliated. Their plan to ruin Marcus had only exposed their own bitterness. But Marcus knew better than to celebrate too soon. Men like Tyler didn't stop at humiliation. They escalated. And the look in Tyler's eyes as he left, cold, sharp, vengeful, was a warning. The reunion had begun as a cruel joke. Now it was a war. And Marcus, for the first time, realized he wasn't just fighting to protect his reputation. He was fighting to protect everything he had built. The headlines the next day crowned Marcus a star. Tech CEO silences hecklers with calm grace. Marcus Green turns public ambush into triumph. From high school outcast to industry titan. Photos of Marcus at the podium, poised and unshaken, spread across social media. Clips of his line, "Failure isn't falling. Failure is staying down," went viral, inspiring thousands. But while the world celebrated him, three men seethed in silence. Tyler, nursing his bruised pride, replayed the keynote footage over and over. Each time Marcus's calm voice echoed, each time the crowd laughed at Chase, Tyler's rage grew hotter. His humiliation had gone global. Roman, less emotional but more dangerous, saw opportunity in failure. Their public ambush hadn't worked, but damage could still be done behind the scenes. He whispered to Tyler, "If we can't break him in public, we break him in private. Hit the company where it hurts." And Chase was unraveling. His video rant had become a meme. Investors pulled what little remained of their interest in his startup. Debt collectors called hourly. In his haze of whiskey and regret, Chase muttered, "He ruined me." Never mind that Marcus hadn't done anything. Chase needed someone to blame, and Marcus was the only name left. At Green Technologies headquarters, Marcus's team noticed odd disruptions. Emails bounced inexplicably. Internal files went missing. A shipment of critical hardware was rerouted halfway across the country with forged instructions. Laura, his COO, stormed into his office. "Marcus, this isn't random. Someone's targeting us." Marcus leaned back, hands steepled. "Roman." Laura blinked. "How do you know?" "Because he doesn't build. He sabotages." "And Tyler?" "He won't stop until he thinks he's won." Laura's jaw tightened. "Then we fight back." Marcus shook his head. "Not yet. Fighting back now makes us look rattled. We stay steady. That's our strength." But inside, Marcus felt the tension coil. He knew this was no longer about embarrassment. This was war. That night, Marcus returned to his apartment to find his door slightly ajar. His chest tightened. He pushed it open cautiously. Inside, the place looked untouched, except for one thing. On his desk sat a yearbook from Rutherford Academy, open to his photo. Scrawled across the page in red ink, "Still nothing." Marcus stared at it, jaw tightening. This wasn't just sabotage. It was intimidation. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number: "Next time, it won't be your apartment." For a moment, Marcus felt the old fear rise, the same fear from high school hallways, when lockers slammed around him and whispers followed him everywhere. But then he exhaled slowly. He wasn't that boy anymore. He picked up the yearbook, closed it, and placed it carefully in a drawer. If they want a fight, he muttered, they'll get one. Meanwhile, Brooks found herself caught in the middle. She had tried to warn Marcus, but now the hostility was spiraling out of control. She confronted Tyler one evening outside a bar, her voice sharp. Enough, Tyler. This isn't high school. You're grown men. Why are you so obsessed with destroying him? Tyler's laugh was low and cold. Because he destroyed us. He made us look like fools. And you, don't think I haven't noticed you running to him. Trying to play his ally now. Pathetic. Brooks's cheeks burned. You think humiliating him will fix your life? It won't. He's everything you'll never be. Tyler's expression hardened. Careful, Brooke. Don't pick the wrong side. You'll regret it. She stood her ground, but when she walked away, her hands trembled. Tyler wasn't just lashing out. He was plotting something darker. Roman's plan unfolded quietly. He fed rumors to journalists, doctored old emails to suggest Marcus had stolen code in his early days, and whispered to rival companies about potential, legal vulnerabilities. It didn't matter that none of it was true. Doubt was enough. Within a week, 2 major investors called Marcus, concerned about recent chatter. A competitor filed a frivolous lawsuit. Online forums buzzed with speculation. Marcus sat in his office, eyes closed, breathing steadily as Laura laid the reports on his desk. They're cornering us, she said. You can't keep ignoring this. Marcus opened his eyes. Calm, but sharper now. I'm not ignoring it. I'm waiting for the right moment. That moment came sooner than expected. Late one night, Marcus received a call from an unknown number. A voice, low and disguised, spoke. We're not done, Marcus. Tomorrow, your empire falls. The line went dead. Marcus sat in the dark, phone still in hand, the city lights flickering outside his window. For years, he had been underestimated, mocked, dismissed. Now he was being threatened, not as a boy, but as a man who had built something worth envying. He stood slowly, the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. Tomorrow, whatever came, he would not hide. Because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about survival. Morning came heavy with anticipation. Marcus sat in his office, the city skyline blazing gold behind him. His phone buzzed non-stop, messages, alerts, whispers of panic. Something was happening. Laura burst through the door, face pale. They've gone public, she said. She dropped a tablet onto his desk. The screen displayed a breaking news article. Whistleblower claims Marcus Green stole his tech. The whistleblower was Chase, his face puffy and desperate in the video interview. He slurred through accusations, waving supposed proof, old scribbled notes, unrelated code snippets. Roman had planted the story perfectly, feeding it to a hungry journalist. Tyler, meanwhile, had lined up social media bots to amplify it. Within hours, #MarcusTheFraud trended online. Investors called in a frenzy, demanding answers. Laura's voice shook. Marcus, if we don't get ahead of this, it could cost us everything. Contracts, funding, reputation. Marcus raised a hand. Calm. Controlled. Let it play out. Laura stared. Let it play out? Are you insane? They're trying to burn us down. Marcus leaned back, folding his hands. Exactly. And once the fire burns hottest, that's when we douse it, with truth they can't twist. Across town, Tyler, Roman, and Chase toasted their victory in a dingy bar. Tyler's grin was sharp, cruel. He won't recover from this. Public image is everything. Once they smell blood, investors run. Roman smirked, swirling his drink. It's not just investors. Competitors will circle. Lawsuits will pile up. He'll drown in the same silence he used to hide behind in school. Chase, drunk and bitter, slammed his glass down. Good. He deserves it. He thinks he's better than us. Let's see how better he looks when it all comes crashing down. But beneath Chase's drunken bravado, Roman saw the cracks. He was unstable, unpredictable. Useful, but dangerous. Relax, Roman said coolly. This is just the beginning. By noon, Green Technology's stock price wavered. Blogs spread the story like wildfire. Competitors released vague statements about ethics in tech. For a moment, it looked as if the empire Marcus built might actually crumble. That was when Marcus made his move. He called a press conference. The auditorium filled quickly, journalists, investors, cameras flashing like lightning. Marcus walked onto the stage, no hoodie this time, but a tailored suit. Calm. Collected. Eyes steady. Some of you have heard the accusations made against me, Marcus began. That I stole ideas. That I built my company on lies. I'm here today to tell you the truth. He tapped the remote in his hand. The screen behind him lit up, not with charts or patents, but with receipts. Emails. Dated prototypes. Video logs of him coding through the night in his tiny apartment, time-stamped years before any of his classmates even understood the concepts. This, Marcus said, pointing to the evidence, is my work. Mine alone. Documented, recorded, verified. The crowd murmured, impressed. But Marcus wasn't done. Now, let's talk about my so-called whistleblowers. He clicked again. The screen filled with photos, Chase's failed startups, Tyler's string of bankrupt projects, Roman's history of lawsuits for fraud. Public records, all verifiable. These men, Marcus said calmly, invited me to our reunion to mock me. They thought I was still the quiet kid they could laugh at. When they learned the truth, they tried to destroy me. But their plan, like everything else they've done, is built on lies. Gasps filled the room. Journalists scribbled furiously. Cameras zoomed in. Marcus let the silence hang for a beat, then delivered the final blow. And just so we're clear, every anonymous source that fueled these stories, every false claim, traced, documented, linked to them. The screen shifted one last time, displaying evidence of Roman's blog posts, Tyler's bot networks, and Chase's drunken video uploads. All of it undeniable. The audience erupted, some in shock, some in applause. Marcus's voice softened. For years, I was told I was nothing. Weird. A loser. And for years, I stayed silent. But silence isn't weakness. It's patience. And patience has brought me here. He stepped back from the podium. This is the difference between us, they built their lives on arrogance. I built mine on work. And today, you see the result. The room exploded in applause. Cameras flashed like fireworks. Journalists rushed to broadcast the story. By the end of the day, headlines shifted dramatically. Marcus Green exposes smear campaign with receipts. From outcast to visionary, CEO turns attack into triumph. Marcus had not only survived the storm, he had turned it into fuel. Back at the bar, the celebration among his former classmates collapsed. Tyler watched the press conference replay on the TV screen, his face draining of color. Roman swore under his breath, slamming his glass down. Chase buried his face in his hands. He played us, Roman muttered. Tyler's jaw clenched. His pride, already shattered, now felt ground into dust. "No," he hissed. "This isn't over. It can't be over." But deep down, even he felt it, Marcus had won. Again. That night, Marcus returned to his apartment. For the first time in days, he felt the air loosen around him. But as he set his keys down, he noticed an envelope on the floor, slid under his door. He picked it up slowly. Inside was a single note, scrawled in jagged handwriting. "You humiliated us once. You won't do it again." Marcus stared at it, expression unreadable. He set the note on his desk, then looked out at the city lights. The storm wasn't over. But now, Marcus wasn't just waiting. He was ready. The city was quiet that night, a thin drizzle streaking across windows and street lamps. Marcus sat at his desk, the threatening note lying unopened beside him. He didn't need to read it again, the words were etched into his mind. "You humiliated us once. You won't do it again." He leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. He knew Tyler's pride wouldn't let this end quietly. Roman's schemes hadn't stopped him, Chase's drunken accusations had backfired. But humiliation had a way of making desperate men reckless. And reckless men were dangerous. Sure enough, the knock came just after midnight. 3 sharp raps. Impatient. Demanding. Marcus rose slowly, shoulders straight, and opened the door. Tyler stood there, rain dripping from his jacket, eyes burning with anger. Behind him loomed Roman, smirk twitching at his lips, and Chase, unsteady, eyes bloodshot. "Can we talk?" Tyler's tone was less a request than a challenge. Marcus stepped aside without a word. If they wanted to play their final hand, he would let them do it face to face. The 3 men entered his apartment, dripping water onto the floor. Roman's eyes flicked over the place, calculating. Chase slumped into a chair, muttering under his breath. Tyler stayed standing, his posture rigid. "You think you won," Tyler began, his voice low but sharp. "The press ate it up. Your investors applauded. You humiliated us in front of the whole world. But you don't get it, Marcus. You're still the same loser you always were. Money doesn't change that." Marcus's lips curved in a faint smile. "Then why does it still bother you?" Tyler's jaw clenched. "Because you don't deserve it. You never did." Roman stepped forward, his voice oily. "Look, Marcus, we don't have to keep this war going. You've got money. Power. We've got connections. Work with us, and maybe we forget all this ever happened. You cut us in, we keep the wolves off your back." Marcus studied him, silent for a long moment. Then he said softly, "You've mistaken me for someone desperate enough to bargain with parasites." Roman's smirk cracked. Chase suddenly slammed his fist onto the table, rattling a coffee mug. "You ruined me," he shouted, voice hoarse. "You sit there calm like some king, but you ruined my life. I had investors. I had a future. And then you exposed yourself," Marcus interrupted, his voice sharp enough to cut the air. He leaned forward, eyes locking onto Chase. "You destroyed your own future. Just like you tried to destroy me in high school. The difference is, I learned from pain. You never did." Chase's words faltered. His shoulders slumped. For the first time, Marcus saw not rage in his eyes, but despair. Tyler's voice broke the silence. "You think you're untouchable, Marcus. But I promise you, we'll find a way to drag you down." Marcus stood then, tall, steady, unflinching. He looked each of them in the eye, one by one. "You already tried," he said. "At the reunion. At the keynote. With your lies, your whispers, your sabotage. And every time, you failed. Not because I'm untouchable. But because you've built your lives on tearing others down. And that will never stand against someone who builds. Tyler's fists clenched, knuckles white. Roman shifted uneasily. Chase dropped his gaze to the floor. Marcus moved to his desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out a folder and dropped it onto the table with a quiet thud. Inside were documents, printouts of Roman's fraudulent activities, Tyler's unpaid debts, Chase's recorded drunken rants. All legally sourced. All devastating if made public. "I could destroy you with this," Marcus said calmly. "End every job prospect, every investor call, every scrap of credibility you have left." The three men froze, staring at the folder like it was a loaded weapon. "But I won't," Marcus continued, his voice softening. "Because I don't need to. You'll destroy yourselves. You already are." He closed the folder and slid it back into the drawer. "I'm done wasting energy on men who peaked at 17. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain against the window. Finally, Marcus spoke again. "Get out." Tyler's face burned with fury, but he didn't move. Roman tugged his sleeve, whispering something sharp. Chase stood slowly, shoulders sagging. One by one, they turned and left, silence heavier than any insult. When the door shut, Marcus exhaled. He wasn't shaking. He wasn't afraid. He was free. Days later, the fallout was complete. Roman's blog was traced and shut down, his reputation in shambles. Chase disappeared from the business scene, drowning in debt and regret. Tyler, stripped of credibility, found himself unwelcome in the very circles he once dominated. And Marcus? He stood taller than ever. Green technologies soared. Investors doubled down, inspired by his resilience. Journalists hailed him as a symbol of perseverance. The boy once called loser had become the measure against which others were judged. One evening, Marcus stood at his office window, watching the city lights stretch into the horizon. Brooks joined him, quiet at his side. "They'll never stop hating you," she said softly. Marcus smiled faintly. "Then let them. Hate is a prison. I walked out of mine years ago." She looked at him, eyes full of something he hadn't expected, respect, maybe even hope. Marcus turned back to the city. "I didn't just prove them wrong. I proved to myself that they never defined me. And that's the real victory." And so, Marcus proved what they never believed, that silence can hide strength, and patience can outlast pride. His classmates built their lives on tearing others down, but he built his on vision, and in the end, that difference was everything. Remember, what people laugh at today may be the very thing they'll envy tomorrow. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to True Echo for more stories that turn humiliation into triumph, and drop your thoughts in the comments, because your voice matters here.